Kash Patel didn't just sit down in front of Congress. He walked into the center of a storm. From the opening moments, it was obvious this hearing would be anything but routine. Senator Mazie Hirono came armed with relentless questions, pressing Patel on the most sensitive issue of all, whether the FBI under his leadership is stronger, weaker, or quietly unraveling. She demanded numbers, names, and facts. Patel refused to give her the quick answers she wanted, choosing instead to deflect, delay, and insist that the truth would come later. But this wasn't really about statistics. It was about trust.
Office. I want to better understand the scope of the turnover and the changes occurring at the FBI. Since January 2025, how many FBI employees have retired, resigned, been fired, or otherwise separated from employment? I need a number.
We'll get you a number.
What is the number? You don't have it?
Not off the top of my head, and I want to get you the right number.
Would it surprise you to know that it's probably in the thousands, like 5,000?
I don't think that number's
Well,
accurate.
you don't know. Next question. How many special agents or analysts have left or been fired from the FBI since January 20th, 2025?
Say, we will get you the numbers, and anyone that retires is of their own volition, and anyone that is terminated at the FBI, as I've said before, is done so because they have failed to meet the standards and uphold their loyalty and oath to the Constitution.
Yeah, so you say. Next question. How many executive assistant directors, or special agents in charge have left or been fired from the FBI since January 20th, 2025?
Again, people leaving on their own accord or terminations were done by the standards set at the FBI that have been carried out
With this question, I'm getting
consistently.
to the leadership of the FBI, and you don't have that answer. Next question. Which field office, division, or directorate has lost the most personnel since January 2025? And, do you have the answer to that question?
Yeah, actually, every single field office in the country, including Hawaii, has received a plus-up of FBI agents because we're pushing them out to the field.
Okay, so you're telling me that no field office, division, or directorate has lost any personnel since January 20th, 2025? That's your answer?
In Hawaii, there's been a plus-up. In every single state that I'm looking at, we have allocated a plus-up for field offices across the country so that the FBI can continuing the historic achievements it's done in these last 7 months. When you're talking about firings, you're looking for a media hit and a fundraising clip, and I'm not going to give it to you.
It doesn't matter under what basis they left. I just want to know how many have left. And I think your testimony is nobody has left. Next question.
Nope,
Which
that's
field-
not my testimony. You asked it one time. I answered it one time. You didn't get the answer you wanted for your clip,
Next
so you keep
question.
asking it. And I told you I'd get you the numbers, but you can keep asking it.
Which field office, division, or directorate has gained the most personnel since January 2025? You noted that there have been plus-ups, so which offices have received these plus-ups?
The greatest allocation that I believe was given to California and then Florida.
Where were those offices?
California and Florida.
Thank you. Director Patel, you often refer to FBI agents as cops. All of us, Democrats and Republicans, support the police officers who keep our communities safe. But while our states, cities, counties, and towns all employ police officers to protect our communities, Congress has empowered and equipped the FBI to take on missions that local police cannot, especially taking on terrorists, hackers, and spies. I'd like to assess how well the FBI is able to handle its specialized missions under your leadership. The FBI is the nation's lead federal law enforcement agency for investigating and preventing acts of domestic and international terrorism. And yet the executive assistant directors in charge of the FBI's national security and intelligence branches were both forced out at the beginning of the year. Who replaced them in those positions?
Excellent qualified personnel to lead the mission of arresting 23,000 violent criminals this year alone. That's twice as many as before.
Who took the places of
I'm not going to give you any names so you can attack them.
Why not?
So you can attack them. I'm not doing that. The
You're not
people
gonna
sitting
give
in
me the
those seats
names
are
of-
extremely qualified to handle the job.
You're
We
not
would
gonna
not
give
have
me
the
the names
results.
of personnel who
we would
should
not
be
have the
on your
reduction
website.
of
Fine,
violence in the
moving
state
on.
of Hawaii if we did not allocate the
Earlier
resources we
this
did.
year, FBI counterterrorist special agents and investigators were reassigned to assist with immigration enforcement. Reportedly, these counterterrorism experts were returned to the jobs they trained for in late January after Iran threatened to retaliate for our strikes on their nuclear facilities. Have those experts remained in the jobs they trained for since that time? Yes or no?
FBI agents' primary responsibility is exactly what they are assigned to do. We always work with our
So since they
interagency part.
returned to their positions,
If you're not
are
going to
they
let me
still in
answer,
those
why don't you
positions?
just do your soliloquy in the 4.5 minutes you have
I am
left?
not asking for a soliloquy. It's just a yes or no. Are those people who were returned to their jobs still on those jobs? Yes or no?
They never left.
What was that?
They never left their primary job. It is a surge of resources in law enforcement working with the interagency to combat violent crime and reduce
They were
violent
never-
crime in
okay, they were never
historic
reassigned to do immigration.
proportions.
That's your testimony. Okay, Director Patel, the FBI is also the lead federal agency for investigating cyber attacks and
Yes.
cyber intrusions, both by foreign nation states and by non-state hacker groups. Since President Trump's inauguration, the executive assistant director in charge of the criminal and cyber branch and the head of the FBI's cyber division.
It was about whether the FBI is being run as an independent guardian of the Constitution or whether it's slipping into the shadows of politics and secrecy. Every question Hirono asked seemed to carry the weight of doubt. Every refusal Patel gave seemed designed to avoid being trapped. What followed wasn't just oversight. It was a showdown, a clash of power, perception, and public confidence. And as the exchange escalated, viewers weren't just watching two officials argue. They were witnessing a battle over the very future of America's most powerful law enforcement agency. Senator Mazie Hirono wasted no time going straight for the pressure point. The numbers. How many FBI employees had retired, been fired, or walked away since January 2025? It was a simple question, but Patel didn't give her the simple answer she wanted. Instead, he promised to get the numbers later, insisting that accuracy mattered more than speculation. That only fueled Hirono's fire. She pressed harder, suggesting the figure could be in the thousands, an exodus that would signal crisis at the very heart of the Bureau. Patel pushed back firmly. He rejected her estimate, saying it wasn't accurate, but still refused to put any hard figure on the record. Again and again, Hirono repeated the question, each time trying to corner him. But Patel would not budge. For him, offering a number in that moment would be more than a response. It would be an admission that could be used against him. The tension wasn't about data alone. It was about control of the narrative. Was the FBI hemorrhaging talent under Patel's leadership, or was this just political theater designed to sow doubt? The audience watching had no clear number, but they had one thing for sure. Rising suspicion that as the back and forth grew sharper, Patel finally struck back. He accused Senator Hirono of chasing not oversight, but headlines. You're looking for a media hit, a fundraising clip, he snapped. It was more than just a defense. It was a counterattack aimed at exposing what he saw as her true motive. In that moment, the hearing shifted from fact-finding to political theater. For Patel, this was a way to turn the tables. If Hirono's questions could be painted as grandstanding, then her credibility took the hit, not his. For Hirono, though, the accusation only underscored her point. If Patel refused to answer direct questions, what was he trying to hide? Was his deflection a shield for the Bureau or a shield for himself? The exchange revealed something deeper than statistics. It showed how oversight hearings aren't just about gathering facts. They're about controlling perception. Senators know that sound bites will echo far beyond the committee room. Agency heads know that every word they utter can define the narrative. In this clash, Hirono was pushing for transparency while Patel was fighting to hold the line. But transparency and loyalty couldn't coexist in that moment. And what happened next only raised the stakes further. Senator Hirono then turned the spotlight on the FBI's very mission. She reminded everyone that local police handle day-to-day crimes, but the FBI exists for the challenges others cannot face: terrorists, hackers, and spies. Her question was clear. Under Patel's leadership, was the Bureau still focused on those critical threats, or had it been stretched thin by other priorities? She pointed to reports that highly trained counterterrorism and cyber experts had been reassigned to immigration enforcement. To her, this wasn't just a staffing issue. It was a dangerous diversion from the FBI's core responsibility to protect the nation against foreign and domestic threats. If those specialists weren't fully focused on their expertise, wasn't America's security being compromised? Patel rejected the claim outright. He insisted those agents never abandoned their primary duties. What Hirono called reassignments, he called temporary surges, necessary moves to adapt quickly to emerging crises. In his view, the FBI wasn't weakened. It was more flexible than ever. The two visions couldn't be more different. Was the FBI losing focus on its specialized mission, or had it become more adaptable in facing modern threats? The truth depended on which version of events you believed. And the clash was only getting sharper. Just when the debate seemed locked on numbers and missions, the hearing veered into unexpected territory: pull-ups. Senator Hirono questioned whether new physical requirements at Quantico were fair, especially for women. She argued that biological differences made it harder for many female applicants to pass such tests, raising the issue of whether the Bureau was setting unnecessary barriers. On the surface, it sounded like a small detail, but in reality, it cut to the heart of what kind of qualities the FBI should value in its agents. Patel's response was blunt and unapologetic. If you want to chase down a bad guy and put him in handcuffs, you better be able to do a pull-up, he said. For him, this wasn't about fairness, it was about readiness. Every FBI agent, in his view, had to be prepared for the physical demands of the job. The exchange exposed a deeper divide. Was the FBI best served by enforcing uniform physical standards, or should the focus be on diverse skill sets like intelligence analysis, cyber expertise, and counterterrorism strategy? What started as a question about exercise suddenly revealed a larger debate about identity, capability, and the role of modern law enforcement. And that debate was about to intensify. The moment the pull-up debate hit the floor, another senator jumped in and the conversation shifted dramatically. What began as a discussion about FBI fitness standards quickly expanded into the broader culture wars. The senator argued that Hirono's comments about physiological differences between men and women were proof of something bigger, an argument for protecting women's sports from what he described as unfair competition. Suddenly, the issue wasn't just about law enforcement training. It was about gender politics, identity, and one of the hottest debates in the nation. In seconds, the hearing transformed. A conversation about FBI readiness and recruitment was now being used as ammunition in a cultural and political battle far beyond the walls of the committee room. This pivot showed how quickly oversight hearings can become proxy wars for national disputes. For Hirono, the question had been about fairness in law enforcement standards. For Patel, it was about toughness and preparedness. For others in the room, it became a chance to make a point about sports, biology, and cultural values. This wasn't oversight anymore. It was an ideological battlefield. And the deeper the discussion went, the clearer it became that the FBI was not only under scrutiny for its leadership, but caught in the crossfire of America's larger culture wars. As the exchanges piled up, Senator Hirono delivered one of her sharpest accusations yet. She suggested that Patel's leadership was not guided by independence, but by political loyalty. In her framing, the wave of retirements, firings, and reassignments pointed to an FBI losing its backbone, an institution serving power instead of the Constitution. It was a charge designed to sting, because it went to the heart of public trust. If the FBI director himself was politically compromised, what did that mean for the agency's credibility? Patel's response was immediate and forceful. He listed his career like a resume built on service to country. Public defender, national security prosecutor, intelligence staffer, Pentagon official, counterterror leader. 16 years of work under multiple administrations, he stressed, could not be erased by a single accusation. His voice carried both anger and conviction as he declared his only loyalty was, and always had been, to the Constitution. The moment was more than defensive. It was Patel drawing a line in the sand, rejecting the image of a man serving politicians, and asserting himself as a guardian of the law. Yet for many watching, the question still lingered. Was this declaration enough to silence the doubt? By the time the hearing reached its closing stretch, it was clear that this clash was never just about numbers, pull-ups, or even staffing charts. It was about something far larger, the public's trust in the FBI itself. Oversight hearings are meant to gather facts, but what unfolded here was a war of narratives. Senators like Hirono pressed for accountability, demanding precise data and transparency. Patel, on the other hand, pushed back by framing those questions as political traps, refusing to give sound bites that could be turned against the Bureau. The result was two competing realities. In Hirono's version, the FBI was losing focus, losing expertise, and losing independence. In Patel's version, the Bureau was stronger than ever, adding agents, making arrests, and adapting to modern challenges with resilience. Neither side fully convinced the other. But for viewers at home, the contrast was striking. This wasn't about one statistic or one exchange. It was about what kind of FBI America truly has. A specialized force focused on unique threats? A flexible agency stretched across many roles? Or an institution caught in the middle of political combat, trying to prove it still serves only the Constitution? That question still lingers. What unfolded in that hearing wasn't just a clash between Kash Patel and Senator Mazie Hirono. It was a snapshot of something much deeper. Oversight hearings are supposed to hold power accountable, but in reality, they often reveal the competing visions shaping America's institutions. Patel wanted to project strength, discipline, and constitutional loyalty. Hirono wanted transparency, answers, and proof that the FBI wasn't drifting off course. Both walked away with their messages intact, but the public was left to sort through two very different versions of reality. At its core, this was about trust. Do you believe Patel's claims that the FBI is adding strength, arresting criminals, and adapting faster than ever? Or do you believe Hirono's warnings that the Bureau is bleeding talent, losing focus, and falling into political traps? The truth may lie somewhere in between, but the stakes couldn't be higher. Because when the credibility of the FBI is in doubt, the safety and stability of the nation itself come into question. So the next time you see an exchange like this, remember, it isn't just about who won a debate. It's about who controls the story of America's most powerful law enforcement agency. If you want more breakdowns like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts below.